We've been given the opportunity to talk about Dundee's experience of our last inspection. I've had a wee cunning plan to try and reflect the way the inspections are done. So we're going to do a bit of our story around the strategic side of things, and then talk about the place-based priorities from our capacity building colleagues within the City Council, and then pick out a few good practice areas. Hopefully you'll get some ideas from. In Dundee, there is a CLD service, so you can see the primary teams that we've got up there on the board. We also have a very strong third sector, and we've got quite a good relationship with them and the schools. We have, I'll talk about the community plan partnerships, but we've got a learning partnership which creates a good connection between us, our third sector partners, and schools. So since reorganisation of local government, and I think this is critical to our story, a lot of things have been in place for a long time. So since 1997, over 20 years now, we've put local people at the heart of decision making. And I could probably tell you the story of priority partnership areas. We've had social inclusion partnerships, Fairer Scotland Fund, blah, 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 right up to our community regeneration forums where local people are actually making decisions and recommendations about funds that go to things that happen in their area. We have local community plans for each part of the city. They're almost like neighbourhood plans that reflect the priorities, needs and aspirations of local people. Not just the priority areas of deprivation, every part of the city has a local community plan. And indeed, since 2008, a local community planning partnership, which has councillors, all the major service providers within Dundee City Council and within the Dundee Partnership, police, fire service, NHS, the community and the voluntary sector have quite a big role in that. And as you may see, each of the community plan partnership chairs, who are senior officers within the City Council, and community officers which is the role that we play within the CLD team, Community Capacity Service, we get a chance to have a moan at our chief officers and the chief executive every quarter about the key priorities that affect our area. There's a little bit here just about the Dundee Partnership. It's our strategic partnership for the city, and there's theme groups for each of the themes of the local outcome improvement plan. But critically to our work, there's a Building Stronger Communities theme, which has a real community focus. And we have, from our regeneration forums, the funding kind of organisations, we have a rep from the 6 key wards of the city where there's deprivation. So those people actually sit at these high-level meetings and can raise issues that are of relevance to their particular area. So they have that kind of route straight into fairly senior officers. So in terms of our priority areas, we've got 3 priority areas. Community engagement is a critical part of our service priority. Now we've done it for quite a long time, and we used to have coordinated, targeted engagement strategies in each of the areas, really to try and avoid that engagement fatigue. I mean, our inspection was in Whitfield, Fintry, Millamains, Douglas, Mid-Craigie and Lalathan. It's probably the poorest, most deprived parts of the city, of the country in fact, and certainly in Whitfield, we're going through our 3rd regeneration. People are fed up getting consulted, so we have been clear in getting a coordinated approach so that practitioners from different agencies don't go around the same doors every year at different times. But we kind of moved that on and tried to develop that so that we had a strategic engagement approach throughout the city. We called it Engage Dundee, and I might have in the past, a particular style of doing my engagement. Nicky's might have been completely different, asking different questions. But in anticipation of the development of the local outcome improvement plan for the city and local community plans in 2016, I think it was, we created a standardised system based around the place standard. It wasn't ideal, so we put in a few extra ones that weren't just about physical things, but we had one questionnaire for the city. And we spoke to over 6,000 residents in the city. In the northeast in particular, we spoke to probably about 500 young people through the local school. We used a slightly different, more simplistic questionnaire for them, but nearly 600 people on top of that we spoke to, targeted around key places like schools, youth, parents' nights, the traditional kind of stuff, but also on the street, trying to capture people that didn't engage in any of the activity, and the usual, community groups, youth clubs, community centres, that kind of thing. But the standardised system was really good, so we were developing a similar kind of system of getting information back throughout the city. We also do quite a lot of engagement work around key priorities. So within our community plans, they reflect the aspirations of the community. We will often go out and about and do engagement around that theme. And usually when it's a theme that a local community groups thinks is a priority as well. So it's a good way of drawing in new members to that organisation and the committee, as well as getting more information about the particular priorities. So that's community engagement. Community capacity building. I'm not going to go through these, but these are examples of our priority groups in the city. You might be familiar with some of them, but neighbourhood representative structures is a theme that I think might be different for other areas. But essentially, it's a bit like a community council, but it's the community that have identified the need to have a representative body. Rather than have a scheme of operation of community councils, where people have come together around a key theme, or our engagement work's identified a theme and we've brought people together, they want to be representative. We build that organisation and give them a status, similar to community councils. So they, for following key criteria, they get they will be consulted officially in terms of licensing, planning. They get a grant to do their administration, that kind of thing. I mentioned about the regeneration forums. We'll have 6 of them in the city around the wards. There's 8 wards in Dundee. 6 of the wards have deprivation, and we'll have a regeneration forum. And it has £150,000 on average. Some have more because of the level of deprivation. They have £150,000 to allocate, so we spend quite a lot of time with them. And that's one of the good practice things later, so I'll talk a bit more about that. In terms of our third priority, local community planning. Within CLD, we're lucky that we have our community planning role as communities officers, as well as leading a small community capacity team. So we have one plan for each of the wards. Within our plan, we'll have the same themes that are in the local outcome improvement plan. So the idea of our work is to identify what the community's priorities, needs and aspirations are, and that hopefully meets at the thematic level with the local outcome improvement plan themes. We've been pursuing for quite a long time a method for getting good community profile information, good data, and our partners in NHS and within our city development department, they have a research team. They've been really good every couple of years at giving us a lot of data that relates to the communities in which we operate. So each of the wards have a community profile. I think it's 2016, our latest one, but it's really, really good information, and it gives us a lot of data. And we use that data to inform our community planning partnerships and local community organisations about what the things that they don't often see are. You may see that I mentioned earlier on, our community plan partnership has 6 local reps that come from these priority groups that I mentioned in the previous slide. So we'll have a rep from the Community Council, registered tenant organisations, local management groups and the like. But each area is slightly different depending on what groups there are in that particular area. And I mentioned earlier that we have 6 representatives from the community go up to the thematic Building Stronger Communities group. So we support all those people. Okay, so just a couple of good practice ideas that you might want to think about. As I mentioned, the community officer role is critical to the local community plan partnership and community engagement strategy, and there's similarities in each of those. The community engagement obviously leads into the local community plan, and it's the local community planning partnership that's responsible for the creation, implementation, and the monitoring of that community plan, although it's really us that does the majority of that work. So we're the linkages between officers and community on that side of things. And within that, we're able to almost ensure that what the community are saying at community plan partnerships is really pushed forward, so we're not missing any of the priorities. It doesn't get hijacked by councillors. Well, it kind of does. But we're able to bring that back because we've got that key community plan which reflects what the community are saying are their big issues. And we have our data, we have the feedback from the Engaged Dundee that makes that a meaningful document. It's quite a quality process to go through. And we've got the community there, and because we've briefed them and involved them, they're always able to back us up. And it's quite a good, strong relationship between the two. I mentioned earlier on, local people are key, and Nikki will talk about the Dundee Decides and participatory budgeting, which was the next stage from our relationship with local people. But that's key to the middle one. We've got a very strong relationship with local people. It's been built over 20 years. Okay, sometimes it's the same people that were there 20 years ago, but that level of information and experience those local residents have that have come through that journey is almost greater than the knowledge that we have. And they're able to take that to the critical places where decisions are made. And talk about pathways. Pathways are critical. You've taken that message. In the past, when we had social inclusion partnership, it was just at a local area basis. It never went further up the tree if there was a big issue that people felt passionate about. It probably buffered off staff. Now, with Building Stronger Communities and the local community plan partnership feeding up to the chief officer group, there's a clear pathway for those messages to go from the community all the way up. I kind of briefly mentioned the fact that we do prioritise key community representative structures. In Whitfield alone, I think about 20 years ago, there was 30 tenants groups in one community. There's of 10,000 people. There's only one representative body now, Whitfield Development Group, which is a neighbourhood representative structure, but that's because of the changes over time. But we've put a lot of resource over the years into these key representative structures and supported them to ensure they're representative. So that's where the data, the feeding in information about the local community plan is really critical, so they know it's not just Jeannie's idea of what the priorities of the area are, it's what the community's priorities are. And as a result, we've given them special status, so they get a grant, licensing applications come to them, plan applications come to them, and in terms of regeneration statements, like Millamains and Whitfield in my area, gone through quite major physical regeneration, and they've been a critical and important part of that, the development of those regeneration statements and frameworks, because they've said, here's our priorities. We need these fitted into the regeneration frameworks. So they have that status, even within our planners and city development colleagues. Community profiles, critical. It took us about 10 years, I think, to get that profile data worked out in NHS and city development, understanding that it was really important for communities to see that data. And now we can put in requests whenever we want for a specific community. So if we want information on a small community, the researchers will go and do that data crunch for us and send us a report. It's great when politicians are telling us things about what they think their communities are saying to them, and we can produce the data at community plan partnerships and say, no, this is actually what's happening. So it's really helpful. We do a lot of development planning with groups based around that data, and that's really critical about them identifying what the priorities of their community are. And we've built quite good, strong relationships with a lot of these groups so that they actually take on a lot of the initiatives that make the change in the particular community. In terms of co-production, in Whitfield, there was no community park. Regeneration was going on in the community, and lots of house building, demolition, that kind of thing going on. And people are saying there's nowhere to meet or play or have fun. We want a community park. So when we were helping them develop their kind of lobbying side of things, they actually said, as local people, we want to build a park. We're not going to wait for the council to create it. So they put in a lottery bid, and we supported them to develop the bid and get the correct kind of consultative data. And they put the bid in, and they got £250,000 to build a park. So, and it wasn't our park, it wasn't the City Council's park. The City Council agreed to maintain it once it was built. The City Council agreed with a wee bit of encouragement to design it for free, but it was the residents that got the money. And we've got quite a good, strong relationship with local management groups at community centres, so they put on a lot of the initiatives themselves. In the northeast, as an example, there's a higher proportion of young people than any other ward in the city, and each of the community centres got money to deliver children's programmes because that wasn't a priority within CLD service. So that service is now provided by local people. So co-production is a big thing. Just want to touch on the Community Regeneration Forum. It says informal commissioning. They don't actually commission, but they look at the data that we've given them and they decide how some of the money we have a £50,000 youth diversionary fund. They decide how that money gets used. What the priorities within the data and the local community plans say, they then go and get people to deliver that. So they said, if you put in a bid for us for children's work as an example, or a youth diversionary drop-in, that's what we as local people want to see. So you could do that. You put together a bid and get it into us. Physical improvements work quite well in that way. They'll say, our big priority is to improve this area of wasteland. So we'll give £30,000 to the local authority to deliver that for us. So it isn't quite commissioning, but it is, they can say how they want that money to be spent, and the bid process follows that. Some of the examples that got us are excellent was following schemes like health issues in the community, accredited courses that our adult learning staff can deliver, and they were able to get local people involved in that. And we've actually got an interesting pathway that the adult learning groups are sending some of the more animated and interested residents onto our community councils, on our local management groups, almost like a wee mini pathway where residents get involved in informal learning, they get accredited learning, and then they say, we're really interested in this other stuff, let's get involved in that. So that came through quite significantly in our inspection.